I mean, I do reporting. Sideline reporting.
Do you?
Yeah. So I graduated from the media school with like sports media and broadcasting degree.
Yeah.
And so this whole preseason, when I've had time, I did sideline I did 2 volleyball games for BTN, and then I did softball and women's soccer. So I've been doing a lot of that.
How was that? What'd you learn from that?
It is so much harder than you think. And I love being on the other side of like the athlete, because you're asking them sometimes reporters will ask me questions and I'm like, why would you ask me that? So I think it's nice that I have the perspective from being an athlete and then being on the reporting side. And I think it's interesting, not just like the post-game interviews and stuff, but like being in the media room after games, those questions.
Yeah, what's that like?
It's so weird. So like I was with volleyball, and first of all, I know the girls really well. But then I'm like sitting there with like a bunch of the reporters, the news outlets, after one of their games and before one of their games we did it. And just like people trying to get stories out of you, right? And that's like a lot of reporting is storytelling. It's a lot of storytelling. You're trying to get things out. So I take that into account when I'm on the stage being the athlete, because like if you're asking me a question about, hey, you're gonna go play Iowa, what are your relationships like with some of the Iowa girls? Like I'm not just gonna be like, oh yeah, they're my friends, because then the reporter's just like,
it's hard.
Like you have to kind of.
I've gotten that a little bit on this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yes, but you get to understand it more, and it's cool to be able to learn from others as well. Like a lot of the girls that are in my classes that are also doing like sports media, broadcasting, sideline reporting, sports analysts. That's been fun to learn from them, and it makes you listen to games so different. Like when I'm listening to right now, the WNBA's in the finals, so I listen to the reporters like the entire time, and like it's all the time now when I'm watching games, whether it's basketball or football, like all I do is listen to the reporters the entire time. I'm like, why did I never do this before? And their questions, I'm like, that's a terrible question. And I'm like, that's a really good question to ask someone like post game after a huge win or a huge loss, like stuff like that. So I think it makes you like think about different sides of sports in general.
Welcome back to The Player's Perspective, a podcast hosted by Miller Kopp and powered by Hoosiers Connect. As the official NIL collective of IU Athletics, Hoosiers Connect provides exclusive access to IU student athletes, offering fans an inside look at their lives both in and out of competition. Tune in weekly to hear stories and perspectives from the incredible athletes that make Hoosier Nation proud.
I was looking at pictures. I have a picture of Coach Rhett at my junior high basketball game. And at that point they were allowed to talk to me because I wasn't in high school. Yeah, like my 8th grade, Riverside Junior High. Yeah, because they were allowed to talk to me. Because it's once you get to high school, they can't talk to you. Like after games and stuff. Jeez, it's so weird.
Man. So you have a picture of him recruiting you?
It's so funny. You look like babies.
What's the coach even say to you in 8th grade?
Well, they offered me.
Wait, you got offered in 8th grade? I don't even know if I knew how to like tie my shoe in 8th grade.
I didn't even know what a scholarship was.
I still wore like Velcros probably in 8th grade. So when was your first offer?
8th grade, 7th grade, going into 7th grade, 7th going into 8th grade.
So your 7th grade summer.
Yeah, it was
from
IU, Purdue, Butler. Yeah, those 3. And then the next summer was like Ohio State and some of the other Big Ten.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Were you excited when you got your first offer?
I didn't know what it meant. I really didn't get it.
You didn't get it.
I didn't get it.
That's interesting.
And it wasn't like I posted it.
Yeah.
Because like my dad was the type where he's like, I'm not going to post. We're not going to. Also, it was like so long ago, it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
To put them out on social media, so
showing your age.
We kind of waited till I was like a sophomore in high school. So like then, okay, these are our offers. Like how they.
Wow. You didn't even understand the magnitude of that.
No idea.
I was the type of guy when I got my first offer. You bet your butt. I'm gonna say ass. Bet your ass. I tweeted that thing out.
Oh, yeah.
In class, I remember I was in class. I was like, oh yeah, it's from Rice University. And then the coach called me that night, the night before, and I'm like pacing around my house, and I like told my parents like, yeah, they just offered, and they like were excited, whatever. And then the next day, I was like, I gotta tweet this out at like noon, like midday. Yeah. Everybody will see it. In the middle of class. I had like 80 followers though.
And then people at school would know.
No one knew anyways. But it sucked because I tweeted it out in Spanish class. I still remember it. And I only remember this because an hour after I tweeted it out, I felt like on top of the world. Another kid in my class from Houston just got offered by Kentucky. He became the youngest player ever to be offered by Cal in Kentucky.
And you were just like, damn.
And I was like, oh, that hurts. Like I had like an hour max of some awesome just limelight that probably wasn't even there.
Yeah.
But guy from Kentucky, Jaden Ledee, actually. Love you, bro. Took my shine.
He did.
Dang. So, okay, what was that like, though, being then recruited that early? Did that get in the way of any, like, life and friends and stuff like that?
Honestly, no. I've always been the type to, like, all my friends outside of, like, the gym, like, my best friends, none of them play basketball. None of them have ever touched a basketball. They're, like, cheerleaders, acro and tumbling, more cheerleaders, like, none of my friends growing up. I never had, like, my friend group, the girls I called my best friends, none of them played basketball. So it's like outside of practice and stuff, they didn't even know what was really going on. They were like, oh, you're going to go play college basketball somewhere. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, you're going to visit this school and this school this weekend. I'm like, yeah, but I'll be back for homecoming. I'll be back, so it's nice that I didn't really have to think about basketball outside. And I always kind of tried to separate the two, like my social life and then when I was on the court.
You got to have that.
Yeah.
I made that mistake early on in freshman and sophomore year.
Yeah.
I was everything, and I try to tell people, like the freshmen, sophomores, even like the juniors, I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, it's not as serious as you think.
It isn't, because when it's done, you're like, oh.
You're right?
Wow.
You're like, man,
I woke up at 5 a.m. for a couple workouts, and the next day I didn't make a single shot in a game. Or what?
Who cares?
Who cares? It's the next game.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't know about you, but I remember maybe you have a better memory than me, but I remember like 7 games max in my career. Like 7 games where I'm like, oh, I remember everything that happened in that game. And I remember only 1 practice. But in the moment, I know for a fact, I thought each practice and each game was the biggest deal ever.
I think it's especially for me this season. In practice, I'm not so, like, I missed 3 shots in a row, and I used to be, like, distraught. I'm like, I'm fine. Like, I'm going to miss 3 shots. It's, like, the first year, I think, where I'm finally like, okay, I'm fine. I know. I, like, understand myself as a player.
Yeah.
So, no, it's definitely been better this year.
Well, I think you get to a point when you're just, like, comfortable in your role, in your work, and all the work you put in, and the ability that you kind of just, like, for me, the big realization was, and it happened actually when I got a dog, I kind of just like was able to just like to take a deep breath and be like, you know what, I'll be fine. I'll be okay. But it doesn't make any of the valleys any better.
No,
it still happens. Like, you still have the ups and downs, but you still realize like, okay, I'm gonna come out of this eventually.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Do you have any like moments in your career when that was like the case? When you like where you had to like kind of like battle the storm, weather the storm?
Honestly, the hardest time in my career was probably last season when I got hurt. I broke my foot and I was out for 8 games. And it was like, I came off, so right before I broke my foot in practice, I came off an 18-point game and then 2 20-point games. Like, I was playing my best basketball
feeling good
ever. And next practice, broke my foot. they're like, oh, you didn't break it. It's just some tendon issue. Like, you'll be back in the next game. You're going to miss one game. And I'm like, oh, okay, perfect. Then I go see another doctor, and they're like, oh, no, you fractured your foot. I was like, huh? And they're like, yeah, you're out for a couple weeks. And then it was like, I was conditioning so much, like on the VersaClimber, on the bike. I'd have like 6 workouts a day, underwater treadmill, go over to North End Zone, do the zero gravity treadmill. Then I do a Versa workout. Then I do another Versa workout. Then I do a ball handling workout. And it was like probably 3 weeks of just killing myself. And it was like, I was finally like, I just want to be on the court. And that was like the hardest part for me, was like getting back, like trying to like make sure I was okay to get back on the court, but it was hard mentally. I've never been that mentally drained in my entire career. Really? I was like, even when I was like at Oregon and I wanted to transfer, like this, being injured was 10 times harder, and I don't think anyone realizes it. And it's like, because then coming back, it's like, I'm not going to be 100% right away. And the coaches knew that, and I knew that, and I was trying to prove myself right away, but I wasn't. And so that took a little bit of time, and then like 3 games back, then I was good. But it was hard. Those 3 weeks of me being out, it was terrible. I would like call my mom crying. I just want to play. Like, I'm so tired from just being on the VersaClimber and being on a bike. And I was like, I was over it.
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions people have about sports in general, is coming back from injury. It's not like, all right, I'm cleared. I'm
100% no.
I'm back.
I'm
back to my level.
No, I could barely run. My first game back was Iowa. I could barely run. I was like, they put me on a different matchup because I couldn't. Usually I guarded Kate Martin, who's in the WNBA, and I would never be able to move enough. I was just running back and forth. They're like, just guard the corner and you're good. And I'm like, okay.
Just doing suicides.
I really don't think I dribbled the ball once in that game. Like, I was not moving great.
Well, it takes time. I remember I was fortunate enough to not miss any games in college, but I did have some injuries like in the off season and stuff. And I had one ankle injury that lingered for like 3 months, and it did not get better. But as the season was approaching, like the anxiety built up of like, am I going to be ready? Am I going to be ready? Am I going to be ready? And I still remember it was his name was Jackson Taylor. He's still, I think he's a GA now. It was his first day on the job as a manager. Okay. And so it's me, Jacob Hers, and Isaac Green, and Jackson Taylor. Okay. This is me being out for like 3 months, and I'm like the most psychotic person ever. Like, I've never missed a game in college. I've never missed a practice. Like, I hate you don't.
No, I get it.
As competitors, we hate watching and just sitting there and watching. And this is my first like actual workout back on the court, and we were shooting after practice because I couldn't do anything in practice. And I kid you not, it was like I'd never shot a ball before in my life. And my legs, we did like a light shooting drill that I've done a million times, and I couldn't do it. And my legs were like cement.
Gassed. Yeah.
And I remember like telling him like to stop passing it to me. And I walked to the free throw line, and I like started to tear up.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, after that happened, I was like, man, Jackson, first day on the job, he saw one heck of a workout.
It's probably like, what am I doing here?
He's like this. He's like, I thought I was just here to rebound and, help out and, get some water and make the Gatorade. And no, he was in for a treat that day. And he saw me at probably one of the lowest points in my career. But like, that's one of the biggest misconceptions people have about sports in general is those injuries, like, they are killers to your mental.
Yes.
Well, okay, I like asking this question because like, people don't really know like the behind the scenes of like what we gotta go through, athletes go through on the day-to-day basis. What's another big like misconception you think people have? Whether it's about college basketball or college sports or, being a an athlete?
Honestly, there was this one time last season, of course it was last season, but I had a great year. It was last season, and it was like the dead of winter. And, no, was it? I just remember it was really cold outside, but it might have been towards the end. I was playing, I know, and because I transferred, I lost like over half my credits. It was really bad. So my schedule last year was like 20 credit hours. It was brutal. It was really bad. Because I wanted to graduate in 4 years and then have my decision of my 5th year. So I had to load up on all my classes. So I had like 3 classes in the morning and then like a bunch of other stuff, rehab, then practice, then shooting after practice. And then I had to go to the media school to do an interview. It was just kind of like this. And I don't know what happened that day. Oh, and then I had an NIL thing I had to do. And I think the NIL thing I had to do threw me overboard so much because I knew I had to get it done that day and take a video. And like, I think I like probably hired you for something to take the video. And it was like,
have said yes.
It was like, I don't know. I remember crying driving after practice. It was like 8:00 at night. They had me do this interview, and I agreed to it because I hate not agreeing to things. Like, I feel like, I don't know. That's just something about me. Like, I'll say yes to everything. So I'm driving there crying. And I'm like, I had a terrible workout. I had class all day. I just had to take a test. I have to finish this NIL project. I have to edit it. I have to send it in. I have to email them back. I have to go to the media school. And I get there, and Professor Clavio is there with like all these students. And I'm standing there, and I have like a sweatshirt on like this, also gray sweatpants, slippers. I just got done from practice. I looked a mess with my hair like in this gross bun, and I sat down for the interview, and I'm like, guys, being a student athlete is not what you think it is. And I was like, this is terrible. I'm giving you the full, like, this is what it is. And I'm going to have to wake up at 8 a.m. for a class tomorrow. And they were kind of just sitting there like, okay, so tell me about your NIL experiences. I'm like, oh, I have to do that after this. And they're like, oh, that was probably like the funniest but hardest days ever. And it kind of like made me realize like, okay, it is a lot to be a student athlete sometimes, and you don't realize it. And it was like the school part that also was throwing me over, and people think that like school's super easy, and like it's not. Like we still have to go to class, we still have to do the tutoring. But yeah, that was one other time where, and I did call my mom on my way to the media school for that interview, and she was laughing at me because she's like, this is ridiculous. She's like, are you serious, Sydney? And I'm like, yes, it's terrible. I just want to go home. I want to be able to take a nap in the middle of the day. And she's like, okay, just go do the interview and go to sleep. I'm like, okay, Mom, got it. But yeah, it was a rough day.
That is a great encapsulation of the like top of the top student athlete life.
Because when you throw the NIL stuff in there, it's like, oh, here's a whole nother thing we have to do.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
It's great, yes.
It's great, but it's also
work.
Yes, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. And there's some, people that don't do the work.
Right.
As we know, you definitely do. And we're here now, so like you're seeing it.
Yes.
That is so one of my other like questions as you were talking earlier. It's like, I wonder what her day in the life is like. But that just tells me everything I need to know right there.
Yes, it's a lot.
Because
but right now, this year's easier because I my class schedule is so much easier because I already graduated. So it's hard to start a master's program with 1 year left of eligibility. Yeah. So my classes I have a lot more time. Let's just say that. Lot more time on my hand. So I get to, one of the greatest things about that right now is my grandparents live 20 minutes away from here, and I get to go have lunch with them. They get to come to Bloomington. They get to get out of the house because the only time they get out of the house is to come to games. Yeah. So right now it's like, hey, come to Bloomington, let's go. They love Olive Garden, so we always go to Olive Garden. I get to see my family a little bit more, so it's nice being close to home too. Just getting that extra, like I'm done with my workouts I'm a morning workout person, so I work out early in the morning, then practice, and then I'm done at like 1:30.
That's awesome. Yeah, so
then I have the rest of my day to like kind of do normal people things.
Walk your dog.
Walk my dog, yes, walk my dog. I just took her out. I was gonna bring her, and then I was like, okay.
Should have.
She would have.
I'd have been all for it.
She would have been everywhere. We would have had to find her.
Give her like a nice
she wouldn't
traders.
say so. She would not say so.
That is awesome. So you walk your dog, obviously.
Yes.
What else do you do outside to like just chill?
Not much.
Shopping.
I love shopping. I recently, like the other day, I'll try to do like crafts. I hate crafts. I'm like not a craft person at all. Like I can't draw. I'm just not that person. But I made friendship bracelets like for the Taylor Swift concert. So I did that. My family was making fun of me because we just don't do crafts.
Not a big crafts guy either.
Yeah, no.
Not a big craft family.
No. And then I really don't do much outside of basketball because I like being here too. So sometimes I'll come back later in the day. I can't read that. Oh, okay, perfect. I mean, I do reporting. Sideline reporting.
Do you?
Yeah. So I graduated from the media school with like sports media and broadcasting degree.
Yeah.
And so this whole preseason, when I've had time, I did sideline I did 2 volleyball games for BTN, and then I did softball and women's soccer. So
wow.
I've been doing a lot of that.
How was that? What'd you learn from that?
It is so much harder than you think. And I love being on the other side of like the athlete because you're asking them like sometimes reporters will ask me questions and I'm like, why would you ask me that? So I think it's nice that I have the perspective from being an athlete and then being on the reporting side. And I think it's interesting, not just like the post-game interviews and stuff, but like being in the media room after games, those questions.
Yeah. What's that like?
It's so weird. So like I was with volleyball and first of all, I know the girls really well, but then I'm like sitting there with like a bunch of the reporters, the news outlets after one of their games and before one of their games, we did it. And just like people try to get stories out of you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like a lot of reporting is storytelling. It's a lot of storytelling. You're trying to get things out. So I take that into account when I'm on the stage being the athlete, because like if you're asking me a question about, hey, you're going to go play Iowa, what are your relationships like with some of the Iowa girls? Like I'm not just going to be like, oh yeah, they're my friends. Because then the reporter's just like,
it's hard.
Like you have to kind of.
I've gotten that a little bit on this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yes,
little bit more, please?
yes, but you get to understand it more, and it's cool to be able to learn from others as well. Like a lot of the girls that are in my classes that are also doing like sports media, broadcasting, sideline reporting, sports analysts. That's been fun to learn from them, and it makes you listen to games so different. Like when I'm listening to right now, the WNBA's in the finals, so I listen to the reporters like the entire time, and like it's all the time now when I'm watching games, whether it's basketball or football, like all I do is listen to the reporters the entire time. I'm like, why did I never do this before? And their questions, I'm like, that's a terrible question. And I'm like, that's a really good question to ask someone like post game after a huge win or a huge loss, like stuff like that. So I think it makes you like think about different sides of sports in general.
How much of that stuff is planned out? How much of it is just off the cuff?
So first of all, it's a lot of prep before. Like I bet you're learning like before podcasts, it's a lot of preparation.
Yeah.
But the more I prep, I found out the more I've done it, because I do different sports. So I have to learn about different sports. I had no idea about how softball even worked. Like I had no idea. I know basketball and volleyball, and that's about it, and football. And so it's fun to get to learn the sport, but then you have to like, when I first started, I would just write out my questions and be like, I'd try to memorize the questions. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ask this, this, and this, 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 and this. And then once I started doing that, it would drive me crazy, because as I'm going like this, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm about to ask next. I'm trying to like think, and I'm not listening to their answer.
Yep.
Because then their answer could lead me on to another question. So it's like, I start to do bullet points like, hey, these are some topics. Let me hear what your answer is going to be and go from there, type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I found almost less prep of like exact writing out the entire question is better, but you still have to know so much about, the athlete and who you're interviewing, who on the team, their stats and stuff like that. I had a really bad experience during the NCAA tournament before playing South Carolina. Me, Sarah, and Mackenzie were being interviewed, one of the best sideline reporters you could possibly know in the world. she had no idea who we were. She had no idea that I played with one of the girls at South Carolina and Oregon. She had no idea that Sarah was a transfer from Minnesota. She knew everything about Mackenzie, but like everyone knows everything about Mackenzie. But you know, I think that kind of also put it into perspective for me. I'm like, you have no idea who you're talking to right now. Even though we were the underdogs, like we weren't supposed to win that game, but still, you should probably know everything about who you're talking to. And so I think that really put a lot into perspective for me. I'm like, I want to be able to go into games knowing everything that I can possibly know and being as prepared as I can be when I'm either asking them questions one-on-one before the game or actually having to interview them or having a hit in the middle of the game talking about Delaney Maple being a transfer from USC and winning 4 national championships, you know, stuff like that.
I could tell you've done your research.
Yes.
Let's go. That's awesome.
Tried.
Wow. Hey, thanks for bringing that up. That's cool.
I totally forgot. That's what I do. So
that's awesome. So is that what you want to do after you're done playing?
That's the goal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's like the dream job?
I want to do
setting, like what is it? What's it look like?
Like sports analyst
okay.
for women's basketball or men's basketball, and sideline reporting with that. So you have to, because you can't just do sideline. You have to kind of be able to do it all.
Yeah.
And so I've struggled with that because I'm struggle with doing color, and people always tell me you have to learn how to do it. And I'm like, okay. And so I haven't done it, but I've like done people have just given me tips and stuff when I do have the opportunity to do it, you know. I just feel like I would struggle with it.
So explain to people out there what that is. When you say color.
It's like, so in a basketball game, like you're doing play-by-play the entire time. And I'm basically the one that's just filling the blanks about stats, about stories, about, you know, what you have to say about what the play just happened. I put my input in, just a lot of like the filler stuff. And I feel like I would just be not great at it, but I can talk. So like, I don't know. I think I would start cheering for a team. That's my one problem, I think.
You can't be biased.
I said, here's the one. Oh, this was so bad. It was my second softball game I did here at IU. They were playing Wisconsin. And on one of my hits, I said, we, as in IU, because I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of the Hoosiers. I said, like, we're going into the bottom of the 4th. Or like I don't know what I said. Oh, we're up going into the bottom of the 4th, something like that. So, yeah, that was... But you got to practice.
Yeah, you're going to mess up.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that because you now see that that's like all you can like hear, and you're like, you're just listening to it and you notice it and you're aware of it.
Yeah.
I've felt the same thing, especially when like before JJ Redick was the coach of the Lakers.
Yeah. I
was listening to his podcast from like since he started.
Yeah.
And when he started doing like, you know, color commentating, I started to actually like listen because I liked his insight and stuff. And then I realized, dang, everybody does this. I'm like, this guy's actually really good, but this guy's terrible.
Yes.
The hardest part I feel like about it would be being really concise and not like over talking, but also having something of value to say.
Exactly.
Instead of just rambling. And you can hear when somebody starts a thought or a sentence.
Yes.
And they're like, they know it's going to be too long. And so they're like speeding up their talk right before the next play starts.
Yes. Oh, it's super hard. And when they start talking about themselves.
Yes.
I think that's such a hard thing when you're in sports media and you're doing sideline, commentary, play-by-play, whatever it is, analyst. But you've also been on the other side, and so you tend to talk about yourself. And I think that's really hard for ex-athletes going into that world.
Well, shoot, you just saw with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
His first debut, everybody was on him.
Yeah.
Like,
it's hard.
Give the guy some grace.
He's probably never done it before.
Yeah.
Like, ever. Like, he probably grew up never... Like, he's probably just been on the other side of it, you know, being interviewed.
Yeah. And just talking to his team and teammates about, like...
It's so different. It is so different. I've had my, like, situations where I sound terrible, but I know it. I'm like, yeah, that was bad, but... Like, I'm also 21 years old in college. Like, not a lot of people have this opportunity.
Yeah.
Which is really great that our media school has that.
That's awesome. What, do you listen to yourself back? Like...
And I hate it. I really do. Like, or my family will send, like, they'll be watching the game and they send the clip, like, right after. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to listen to it. But sometimes I will, because I know after a hit, like I'm like, oh, that was really good. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to it. And sometimes the producer will tell me, because we're all like at IU, we're all students. So my producer's a student, and he or she will be like, hey, that was a really good hit. You could use this for your reel. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Because they're at least like hearing it right away live. So that's really nice too.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I gotta get into that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a lot though. Podcasting, we can, it's less, I don't know, less intense.
I took a podcasting class last year.
And what'd you think?
It was a lot of editing.
Oh yeah.
It was like all editing. So that was really hard.
Yeah, no. What we do here, we just yap.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that all day. The editing part, I was like, this is really hard to do.
I tried to start a podcast, right before COVID. And then I was like, okay, I know I can talk. I can ask some questions. Yeah. I'll figure that stuff out. But then I started to realize that, yes, you got to put a platform, then you got to record it, and then you got to get the mics, and then different sound, whatever. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna put this on the back burner, and we'll figure out maybe, something else later.
Oh yeah.
Stick with the interviews.
Oh yeah.
That's all I got.
Perfect.
So I appreciate the time.
Yeah.
That was a blast. And
thank you.
Last thing we do here, we just like tap mics. It's kind of like a cheers.
Cheers.
That's it.
I love it.
We hope you loved this episode of Players Perspective. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Stay connected with Hoosiers Connect on social media for even more exciting content featuring IU student athletes. Until next time, Hoosier Nation.